everyone. I'm Sharon Epperson, CNBC Senior Personal Finance Correspondent. Welcome for joining us for Finding Your Financial Success. You know, there are about 20 million college students across the country that are living in these uncertain times. They're adjusting to new learning environments, they're working full-time or part-time jobs, and they're planning for their futures. But there is one thing that's certain, and that is that all students need to learn how to manage their finances in order to be successful. And so today we're going to give voice to college students across the country who are here with us to ask their most pressing and personal finance questions. We have an esteemed panel that is ready with actionable answers and guidance to give to all of you. And so we're proud to partner with our colleagues at NBCU Academy today who are committed to providing education and online programming for college and university students. So let's get started. Class is now in session. And joining us, we have fantastic panelists to help to answer your questions today. First, we have Martin Cabrera. Martin Cabrera is the CEO of Kuberiet Capital Markets and Capital Partners. He's a member of the CNBC Financial Wellness Council as well. And we also have Dr. Anthony Chan. Dr. Anthony Chan is a former chief global economist for JP Morgan Chase. Currently, he's the treasurer of the Skybrook Foundation, founded by basketball legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It brings educational STEM opportunities to underserved communities. So we thank you both for being here, as well as an Olympian who is in our midst, Lauren Williams. She is a certified financial planner and founder of Worth Winning, which offers financial services to young professionals. She is also a three-time Olympic medalist and the first American woman to earn a medal in both the Summer and the Winter Olympic Games. Lauren, thank you so much for being here as well. And we have a celebrity in our virtual house today. Daymond John is joining us. You probably know him as the People's Shark on Shark Tank. And Daymond is also the CEO of the Shark Group and the founder and CEO of FUBU. He's the best-selling author of several books as well. You probably have them or read them: Rise and Grind, Power of Broke, and Power Shift. Thank you all for being here and for sharing your ideas and your insights with all of the students that we have that are coming us today with their questions and those who are listening attentively to your answers. I want to get started with our first student, and that is Margot Reid, who's studying global business at Fordham University. Margot, what is your question for us today?
Thank you so much, Sharon, and thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. I am a proud member of the class of 2021, like many of my peers here, and I'll be graduating in a few weeks. My question is, what is your best advice for balancing the demands of adding to a savings account, contributing to a Roth IRA, and paying off student loan debt during our first few years post-grad?
Lauren, you work with young professionals all the time. Can you start us off? Where should she begin?
Yeah, I would definitely focus, Margot, on your emergency savings to start out. That's going to be a really important part of the process to make sure that you don't end up in credit card debt. With no emergency funds and trying to focus on paying down a lot of debt or investing too soon, something happens, comes out of sight, out of mind. You're like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And you don't have that emergency fund to lean on. So get that under control. Get at least $5,000 put aside, no matter how much you're earning, so that you know you have some sort of cash cushion. And then you can start to say, okay, extra money is left over. How much do I want to invest? How much do I want to put toward paying down debt aggressively?
Lauren, it's great that you gave an actual number, because so many people want to know what percentage they should do or how much they should do. And you gave an actual number. Why do you say start with 5,000?
I think 5,000 is a good baseline number, because when you come out of school, you're making all kinds of different levels. So, you know, you may be earning at $30,000 entry level salary, or you may come out and earn $100,000, a really great job you land right out of the gate. Ultimately, you want to have 3 times whatever your take home pay is as your emergency fund. But a baseline of 5,000 will keep you in pretty good shape should some sort of unforeseen circumstance come along.
Excellent, Lauren. Thank you. And Margot, thank you so much for your question. Jordan Brown is our next student. He's a sophomore at Morgan State University in Baltimore, and that school is one of our NBCU Academy partner schools. Jordan, go ahead with your question.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be in this virtual space with you all. My question for you is, what advice would you give to college students like myself that are trying to balance a new budget while also paying for the necessary essentials we need to live?
That's a great question, Jordan. And there is a study that has recently come out from Georgetown University looking at the fact that nearly 70% of students are working while they're enrolled in college. So you're asking a question that a lot of students have. Martin, what is your advice for Jordan and for other students?
I think, Jordan, you've got to just be out there and kind of looking to all those different options for you, but that are going to be key to, your savings and to your investments as well, that, you're going to be ensuring that it's going to be right for you and taking the right kind of savings approach and investment approach across the board. So I think it's just being aggressive and just being mindful of your expenses as well.
Thank you, Martin.
so much.
Next, we have Luke Hooten. Luke is a senior at the University of Texas at Austin. And Luke, what is your question?
Hi, y'all. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us today. My question is, as someone who has not followed the stock market very closely before, what's the best way to learn about and be involved in the stock market right now?
Common question, Anthony. So many people have it, and I know you have the best answer out there. What is your answer to that?
Well, first of all, I love Lauren's response that you should start out with $5,000 as an emergency fund. But in terms of investing, I think you should be saving anywhere from 10 to 15% of your income every single month. And I think you should start out with index funds, because that is the best place to go when you're not completely sure of what you're doing. And of course, the little book of Common Sense Investing by the legendary John Bogle is a good place to start if you want to learn something about index investing. And again, over time, you are going to experience a lot of growth. 7% on average is the market rate of return, which means you're going to be doubling your money almost every 10 years. Not a bad place to be in.
Absolutely. Got to get invested. We want to stay in the Lone Star State, and we're going to go to Yesenia Ecobedo, who is pursuing her master's degree in history and political thought at Texas A&M International University. Yesenia, what's your question?
Hi, I'm so excited to be in front of all of you today. My question is a simple one, but I would like a good answer for this. It is, when should we start an additional stream of income?
Yeah, when should you have that other stream of income is a very good question. And one that I think we need a key entrepreneur to answer that question. Damon, what is your response to that one?
I think that you should be starting to think about that additional stream right now. It's never too late to start with that. So where do you think that you can find additional income? Is it in the market? Is it paying dividends? Is it investing in other things? So that's a personal question. Where can you find it though? Because a lot of people today are very confused. They're chasing everything from NFTs to Bitcoin to sports cards, but it has to be something that you are educated in, something you're excited about, and something that you're willing to put in the time to constantly educate yourself on. So it's not when, it's where, and how do you find the level of interest that's going to keep you excited about it?
Damon, so many students out there have a part-time job, a full-time job, a side hustle, 3 side hustles. I mean, how do you figure out where to put your attention to? And is there a chance that some may be doing too much at the same time?
I think the liberty that it offers you to be a student, and the freedom is you should be, putting, your time into a lot of different things to see what you like and what you love. Honestly, 80% of my staff started off as interns. They put in the time, they got out of school, and then they put in the time with us. And I noticed if they showed up before, the people I was paying and stayed after, and they were Swiss Army knives, they got, opportunities to be employed. Or what did they learn? They learned the business that they don't like to be in. Right? And they found other areas. So I think that as a student, you should have that liberty, because sooner or later, you're going to be somebody's parent. You're going to be somebody's husband. You're going to be somebody's wife. And you're not going to have that liberty and time to run around and do all the things you want to do to discover yourself. So I think you should be doing a lot of things in the beginning to really try to find yourself.
I remember somebody telling me, Damon, when I was in college, that was I ever going to get a job? I had so many internships because I like so many different things, but it did help me hone in on what I really wanted to do for my career. So working a lot of places with a lot of different type of people, it's a really good learning experience for you as you're trying to figure out your stream of income and your career goals going forward. Thank you, Damon, and thank you very much for your question. We're going to go now to Jahari Lindsay, who is a junior at Morehouse College studying biology. Jahari, what is your question for the panelists?
Thank you, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be here. My question to you all is, Reflecting on your own experience, what advice would you give to your younger self when you were first starting your finance journey?
That is a great question, I think, for all of our panelists. Can I start with you, Anthony, on that one?
I think the best advice that you have to give yourself is to really pursue your passion, because when you enjoy something, you're going to be very excited about pursuing it. And of course, if it's career linked also, then it's going to be a win-win situation. But first go with your passion and then look to see what the demands are for that passion. Because I think in the long run, if you pursue that, you're going to be a winner.
Absolutely. Damon, what would you say?
Yeah, I think that being aware that you need to know how the tool of money works is extremely important, because I got to tell you, I wasn't smart enough as these young people right here, because I took off that 1 year before going from high school to college, and that became forever. And I wasn't smart enough to invest in my future. So I think understanding financial intelligence and constantly asking yourself, how does money work, is critical, because as we opened up, Sharon, you're always going to need to understand how money works. And our school system does not teach you about this stuff. They should be teaching financial intelligence when you are, in the 3rd or 4th grade, like they teach shop. I'm not sure if anybody here is going to ever need to build a birdhouse, but we're all going to need to balance a checkbook some way or another. So constantly understanding how money works is extremely, extremely important. And credit, of course.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what's so interesting when you think about financial literacy. A lot of research out there shows people know a lot about borrowing. They know a lot about, some about saving, but they don't know hardly anything about credit and risk and what that means for your money. So it's important to really get this education. And I agree with you, in the schools and as early as possible is really important. Lauren, when you think back to your younger self, first of all, did you think you were going to be an Olympian? But also, what did you think about money, and what has influenced you going forward?
Yeah, honestly had no idea that I would become an Olympian. And I think it speaks to life throwing us all kinds of curveballs. Definitely didn't know I would do it in track and field, and 3000% didn't know I would do it in bobsled. So what I would say to my younger self, though, is ask more questions. Ask all the questions. There's a cliche saying that there are no dumb questions, and it is so true. You cannot ask enough questions. You cannot ask enough questions of everyone around you, and also outside of the circle that you have immediately available to you. Try to ask questions of the people you bump into, your university professors, the people where you get your coffee from. Ask questions of everyone, but don't just ask the questions. Double check the answers, because you want to gather all this information, which is going to make you more knowledgeable, but you also don't want to take everything at its face value. And that's how you truly learn things. It's like, oh, I learned about this thing that someone told me. It's really great. But then you go and you do some research on it. And you're like, okay, it doesn't sound as great as they said, but I also have this idea now because I asked the question in the first place. So ask tons of questions.
Great advice. Great advice. Martin, what would you say to your younger self?
Sharon, I just emphasize to my younger self that you got to start early. Start investing, and whatever you have, the little amount that you have, whether it's in college, even in high school, encouraging your parents to start investing. Set aside some money. Make it a habit that every paycheck you're sending up, it may be $10 or $25 or $50, but that's something that you're going to set aside to start investing. It becomes a habit. It becomes like you're drinking water, that you're going to need it. And you're going to start researching more companies, more trends, kind of different industries. And you're also going to realize that of all the companies that you're using, you can be using and running out to get the first iPhone, the next iPhone, but you can also be investing in Apple stock. So I would encourage you to just start investing early and make it a habit. And it's going to be profound for you when you do retire.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think back to my younger self, the one thing that I wish I had then that we all have now is LinkedIn. Because like Lauren, I think it's so important to talk to as many people as possible. And now it's so easy to do that and to connect with people on social media and find out what they have to say and ask those questions. There are no dumb questions. There are some maybe, but when it comes to the people that are speaking with you today, I think they really want to hear your questions, and you need to be following them and seeing what they're writing and what they're talking about. You'll find a lot of answers to the questions you probably have just by following them on social media. So I urge you all to do that. I want to get to our next student's question, and we're going to head back to Texas. Tori, Esprovoa. I hope I said that right, Tori. We're so happy you're with us. You're a
Yes.
senior at Texas A&M. And Tori, what is your question for us?
Well, thank you so much, Sharon, and howdy, panelists. Thank you guys so much for being here and taking time out of your days to be here. And thank you guys also for having me. My question for you guys is, how does a college student like myself build credit independently?
Anthony, good question there. What's your take?
Great question, Tori. And when you think about credit, think about somebody who's just getting started. If you want to learn how to ride a bicycle, you don't start by practicing on a motorcycle. You start on a bicycle, maybe with training wheels. And that, of course, means a starter credit card. A starter credit card is something that you can easily get when you're in college, because the standards for a college credit card are a little bit lower. And if you can't get that one, try something else, and that is a secured credit card. Try to make sure that you link the credit card payments to your checking account so that goes out automatically. You're not late on your payments. Also, try to make sure that your balance is never exceeding or even close to that credit limit, because credit card companies, when you're building up your credit, that's a real bad thing. Don't close out a lot of accounts, because that's another red flag. And finally, try not to open up too many accounts. So again, focus all your efforts on that first starter card and build from there, and you will be successful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Paying those bills on time is like credit 101. So very important. We have another question now from Vivek Patel. He's a first-year grad student at the University of Missouri, focusing on strategic communication. Vivek, what's your question?
Thank you, Sharon. I'm excited to be here. And thank you to all the panelists for taking the time out of your day to answer our questions. I was raised by a single mother in Mississippi who immigrated from India and sacrificed so much so I can be where I am today. So she's one of my big priorities in life. So my question is, what strategies or habits do you have for students from low-income families like myself, who bear the responsibility of not only my own long-term financial success, but also my family's financial future?
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way about their families, especially those growing up in close families. Damon, what is your take on this one?
You know, that's a very good question, and I think the bigger thing to make sure you realize, and I think you are understanding this, is that the studies have shown that you will take care of your parents 2 times longer than they have taken care of you. So this is critical to understand this. So the question becomes, what long-term investments can you have that are, tax benefits on them that you can put away for your parents and for people? So those are really going to be the long-term things. So when you're investing, I think that, and I made these mistakes, with the TD Ameritrades and the Robinhoods out there, I was one of those people that felt like I always needed to have and be in the action and trade. And that was probably the worst thing that I can ever do. You have to find some financial instruments or advisors that you could put money in, like we've been all saying, a small portion of what you have in long term, so that in 20 or 30 years, these things mature and they are there for your parents.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. Very good point. And because everybody wants to run to the next hot app, but you really need to think about what your goals are, what your family's goals are, and who can help you and what instruments, tools, investments can help you get there. So thank you, Damon, and thank you for your question. We have next Lily Umana, who's currently a senior at Syracuse University studying political science. Lily, what's your question?
Thank y'all so much for being here. With so many places to look, where can we find information that we can trust to guide us when investing for the first time?
We love the investing early theme here. Martin, what resources do you think you'd recommend to Lily?
Sure. I think there's plenty of resources out there, and searching on the internet, there's Motley Fools, there's NerdWallet, Yahoo Finance as well. But I think just look into your local periodicals. I think the Wall Street Journal and the CNBC, just putting it on, you're going to learn so much about different companies and different industries. But I think those are some of the tools that you can get started with that will kind of break it down in layman's terms as well. I know there's a lot of financial websites now that will kind of explain some of the terminology in finance, so it doesn't feel so complicated and that it's unattainable. But it allows you to kind of get a good grasp of where you can start investing, and so that you feel comfortable in those investments as well, that you're not taking on too much risk at an early age. But, it is good to just start early. And once you do that and you start investing those first initial dollars, you're going to get a lot more comfortable. You're going to do a lot more research, and it's going to be like reading the paper every day, and you're going to be following those investments. And that's probably the most difficult thing to do, is just getting started.
Absolutely. I think another great place to check, Martin rather, would be to go to CNBC.com and CNBC.com's Invest in You, Ready, Set, Grow. That is a whole initiative that we have going on that is about financial wellness and helping you get started early in investing. And there's also an 8-part learning series that you can sign up for. You'll get newsletters and bonus newsletters about how to tackle what you're facing right now, particularly during this pandemic. You can get that Money 101 Invest in You newsletter as well by going to CNBC.com/Money101. So those are 2 other sources that, in addition to all the great ones that Martin mentioned, that you may want to check out. So thank you so much for that question. Arlette Hawkins is the next student that we have joining us. Graduated with her master's degree from Elon University at the height of the pandemic last year. Arlette, I know you have a great question.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I have my notebook ready because I'm serious about these notes. And my question is, most students like myself have a checking account and a savings account. And I'm wondering, when it comes to making those investment goals, how should we organize those bank accounts? Or should we have a separate bank account for specific goals we want to meet?
Lauren, that's a great question. How many accounts do you need to get all these financial goals accomplished?
Yeah, so this is a great question because what I'm seeing quite a bit is people opening tons and tons of accounts. I've had a client with 38 accounts. That is the all-time record holder. You do not need 38 accounts. So bank account wise, I recommend 3 accounts just to get started and put some guardrails in place. I'm a big proponent of the big bad B word, which is a budget, really being able to track your expenses. But if you have these 3 accounts, you'll be able to create some guardrails. So checking account for main spending, checking account for your discretionary spending, and then a savings account so that you can get saved up for emergencies and above and beyond. So if you have a clear number for your emergency fund, you know that the number above and beyond that is what you can, start moving to investment accounts and beyond. So start with 3 accounts, I think, is a really good way. That way, your discretionary account gets empty. You got to eat oodles and noodles for the rest of the month, but your bills are always going to be paid. So 3 accounts, and then look above and beyond that for your investing account. But you just need one investing account if you're going to do it, one brokerage or one Roth IRA. You don't need multiple investing accounts if they're not the different types of accounts. So just one of each account, depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Keeping it simple. Arlette, does that make sense to you?
Definitely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Up next, we have Caleb Kuberiet. He is graduating from Rutgers University this spring with an English degree. And Caleb, what's your question for us?
Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here today. I am an English major, so I love hearing about people's book recommendations. So I have 2 questions for you. What is a book that you recommend to everybody for personal finance? And what is a book that maybe revolutionized you and the way you think?
Wow, that's a good one. Anthony, what do you say there? You named one already,
Well, Caleb, I'm going to embarrass Sharon, but The Big Payoff is one of my favorite ones. That's a book that Sharon Epperson wrote. And the second book is The Broke Millennial by Erin Lowry. Those are my 2 favorite personal finance books out there that will really tell you everything. In fact, one of those books even talks about uncovering the naked self of couples and being able to open up and talk about your finances. Very important when you have a significant other, even somebody that you're dating with. And then in terms of my favorite book, since you're an English literature major or an English major, was Candide. Because one of the things you have to do is always stay optimistic. We live in the best of all possible worlds. Keep in mind that studies show that if you're optimistic, you're more likely to be successful. So never lose hope, no matter how many challenges are out there. We still live in the best of all possible worlds.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Anthony. Very kind of you. Damon, you're an author as well, 3 books. Those are the ones that I know the students have already probably read. But are there others in addition to your own that you would suggest?
Yeah, absolutely. I think The Intelligent Investor is a great book to read for understanding finance and understanding the market. And I think that in all around a great book, which is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That one probably is the one that I would highly, highly recommend.
Excellent, excellent. And Lauren, what about you? What is your favorite personal finance book?
Yeah, I really love The Psychology of Money. And, as sports enthusiasts, we have to get our mind right in order to be able to, make our body do what we want. In the same way, in order to organize our finances accordingly, we first have to get our mindset correct. So Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel is a great book to read. And for life, I would say The Year of Yes was a really game changer for me. It was the Shonda Rhimes book. And it really just talks about
right
this
there.
idea.
It's
Yes.
right next to me, Lauren. Yep.
It's a big one. It was a real game changer for me, especially at the time period in my life. So to say yes to things you're scared to, because how can you experience and really, understand life and perspective if you don't say yes to anything? So say yes to things you're scared to it's Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren. Martin, what about your favorites?
Caleb, I would say that there's a few books. One on the finance side was by Peter Lynch, and he was a great investor, and the book was called One Up on Wall Street. But he took a very hands-on approach to go into the malls, see what people are buying, and he was observing buying trends. So whether it was pantyhose at Walgreens or whether it was at a female's clothing store, and looking at the demand and looking at the purchasing kind of habits of individuals. But he amassed billions of dollars in a fund. He's a legendary investor. And it was one that I read in college and read after college. And I think it brings a lot of investing kind of prowess, but also just breaking it down into layman's terms of how people should be looking at picking stocks. And as far as the other book that was a game changer for me, and I still read it every 5 years or so, is a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And it has nothing to do with sales, but it's actually a book about life. So whether you become a doctor, a teacher, a lawyer, an investment professional, it's something that it brings so much gratitude in what you're doing as an individual and how you look at work and how you look at life and the impact that you can make. So those are the two that I would recommend.
That's excellent advice. Caleb, you have a lot of reading to do. You have a lot to get done, but hopefully
My list just grew. Thank you all so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Shavana Ali is a junior studying international relations at the University of Maryland, and she joins us now. Shavana, what's your question?
Hi, welcome hello from Maryland. Thank you so much for being here today. So my question is, some immigrants, like myself, have to build financial knowledge from the start. This means creating generational wealth takes more time and intentional steps. So knowing this, what actions would you suggest immigrant students make to have a secure financial future?
That's a great question, Martin. I'd like to get your take on that one.
Sure. Shavana, I know my family is an immigrant family as well. My mother and father came over from Mexico when they were 6 years old and 7 years old. And really, I think the best thing that you can do for your family is start to teach them, not just your parents, but your siblings, but also kind of your cousins and your aunts and uncles. I think kind of educating them on finances, regardless of what career path they may take and you may take. As Damon had mentioned, you're going to be having to deal with money and budgets and investments and 401ks. So I think the fact that when immigrant families come here to the United States from around the world, it's a great opportunity to see the growth in the stock market. But by them investing, they're part of that whole American kind of growth and forum as well, that they are here and living that American dream too, to see kind of their wealth grow in the markets. And by the companies that they're purchasing, they're able to go out there and maybe buy a house or pay for their kids' college education, which will kind of, just change their trajectory on what they're going to do in the future.
Yeah, Martin, that's a great point. I think having those conversations is so important for all families and about investing and about finances overall. And Anthony, I wanted to get your take on this just because I find, in your role previously as chief economist at JP Morgan, you always broke stuff down so well. And how do you do that in a family conversation? How can you get that conversation started about investing, about finances with family members that may not be as educated about it or as interested?
Well, Sharon, I come from very humble beginnings. My mother cleaned office buildings. My dad was a waiter. In fact, I lost my dad when I was very young, about the age of 10. So talking about finances is basically telling a story about where you want to go and then sort of trying to bridge or connect the dots as to how you get there. That's the best way to do it. Tell them, look, this is how much you will earn over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And this is why this is so important. And by the way, if you don't do it, think about what your life is going to be 10, 20, or 30 years. And then it becomes real that it is important to focus on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to make sure that we get to the next student and I don't skip someone. I was just about to do that. Keegan, how could I do that to Keegan Northcutt? I want to make sure that I get to you and your question. Can you tell us what your question is, calling in from Drake University?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm learning so much good content already. My question is, how can I find a good bank that's going to protect my money long term with possible generous interest, possibly for savings account or the emergency funds? And is putting a lot of money in a bank even a good idea?
Anthony, I'm going to bring you in for that one as well. What's your thought?
Well, Keegan, that's a great question. Keep in mind that the most important thing you want to focus on is the bank FDIC insured. The last thing you want to do is put money in a bank and have to worry about whether or not you have a risk of losing that money. And then the second thing you have to focus on is, what do you expect from that bank? If you expect a lot of services, guess what, Keegan? You're not going to get a high interest rate. If you invest and put your money in a bank that has a big and large reputation, again, you're going to get a lower interest rate. So what kind of services do you want? Do you just want a basic debit card to use? Then you can go with a smaller bank. Do you want more services? Like, do you want to be able to get foreign exchanges rates if you want to go on vacation? Do you want ATMs all over the place? Or do you want something super basic? You might even be able to go with a fintech company. But again, you get what you pay for. The more you want, the lower the interest rate out there. But bottom line, everybody needs some sort of a financial institution, whether it be a fintech or whether it be a bank, and then you can decide how many services you want. The more services you want, the lower the interest rate you'll get.
Excellent, excellent. Lauren, you brought up that people should have 3 accounts to start off with. Do you think that they should be at the same bank or the same financial institution? I know there's some financial advisors say that keep it separate so you don't, dip into your savings and where it should be with your checking account. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely recommend moving that savings account to a different bank to create yet another guardrail. So like I said, budget is a key thing, but you have to know yourself. So if you don't know whether or not you're going to be able to, keep your hand out of the cookie jar and stop dipping into savings, then you want to move that and create some additional barriers. So yeah, I would say move that savings account over to a separate bank. And you can usually find like a high yield savings account that is only online banking, which is going to keep those costs low, as just mentioned.
Excellent, excellent. We want to go to an NBCU Academy Partner School, a student from one of those schools right now, and that is Brandy Smith from the University of North Texas. Brandy, go ahead with your question.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My question for you all is, I plan to move to LA from Dallas following graduation next year. What advice do you all have in terms of saving to move across the country?
It's a great question. Lauren, do you have any thoughts about that one?
Yeah, I would say to be thinking about saving up, if you're going to be renting and you're moving from Texas, smaller cost of living to a place that's higher cost of living, to make sure you get that first and last month security deposit saved up, because it's going to be quite a bit. Look for roommates ahead of time. And then also think about this ability to move versus, throw all your things in a car versus getting movers. What I've learned the hard way is that sometimes movers are cheaper than actually trying to do it yourself, because you break your things along the way. Had a lot of things broken, having my friends and family help me out, trying to save $1, and it ended up costing more than it would have had to get movers. So maybe find out how much movers will cost and start saving up for that in preparation for that move.
Absolutely. Whether you're graduating and you're moving across the country, or you're just starting a first job for the first time right near campus, that transition of the next thing and the next step and being fully responsible for your own finances is a big one. Damon, I wanted to just kind of get your take on that too. In growing your businesses, in moving and changing in terms of the things that you've done throughout your professional career, starting out and getting that savings going for project A, project B, or just, the first thing that you're starting to do. How do you get started? What would you say students should be doing?
Yeah, so you have to be budgeting. You have to really be budgeting and living, below your means. As I think we talked about here, your credit, you should not be using more than 30 to 40% of your credit. The credit card companies are watching that, and that's going to increase your credit. But you need to know how much, that you really are going to need a month. And when we see people making a lot of big mistakes, they think things like, well, the house or the place is only X amount of dollars to rent, but they're not thinking about all the ancillary, the other costs that are going to be involved. And a lot of people don't leave the emergency money there because they are looking at the numbers. They're not looking at the numbers properly. They're thinking their monthly cost is $2,000 when it's really $3,500. And a lot of people tend to live beyond their means. And this is a critical time to live much lower than what you need and put this money away so that it can mature for you. So it's really about understanding what you're really, really doing and how many times you're going to go out to eat, how many times you're not going to go out to eat. I mean, all those things are super critical in the beginning years.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. We want to head now to Ohio, where Brianna Bryant is a senior studying accounting at The Ohio State University. Brianna, what's your question for us today?
Thank you so much for having me. So after graduating with my master's this May, I will be starting full-time with Deloitte this fall. So my question is, why is it important for students to understand their benefit packages before starting full-time with the company?
Wow, that's a great question. Anthony, can you answer that one for Brianna?
Yeah, I think that right now, one of the things that you have to focus on is exactly what are your long-term goals. When you figure out your long-term goals, those things actually start falling into place. But again, you have to have that long-term vision of where you're going when trying to make that decision.
The biggest benefit, Anthony, that everyone is, focused on, or many students are focused on, is the 401k. Can you explain a little bit about how that works and why that's important?
I think, Sharon, the 401k is so important because in many cases, you're able to save that money tax-free because the government won't charge you any taxes on the money that's going into that 401k. And then as a bonus, a lot of companies will even match those things up to a certain level. So you're getting an instant rate of return, high octane savings right off the bat. So to me, entering into a 401k program should be the first thing you do and the first thing you think about, even before you start thinking about saving money on your savings account or even putting money in a savings account or checking account in your bank. That 401k is probably the first stop that you should make, again, with that focus on where you want to be. Because again, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are protected as you enter your retirement years. And Sharon knows this because she's reported on this many times. It's very sad that a lot of people at their later stages in life realize that they never took the time to do it. Well, Brianna, you have the time. You're a young person. Please do it. And everybody else out there in college, please make sure that you start early, because the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be.
Excellent, excellent, really important. And Martin, I want to bring you in really quickly on this one also, just because people know now that they need to open that 401k as soon as they start the job. And one of the key benefits that they're going to have is that 401k. But how do you get started investing in it? What is the first investment you should choose, since so many companies have different types of investments?
Yeah, I think for any of those options, you have to go with what you feel comfortable with. And even speaking to some of the other colleagues that have been doing that, getting their advice and guidance as well. But just to start is important. And whether it's index funds, as Dr. Chan had mentioned, is a great way to start. But Brianna, the fact that you're even thinking about benefits is great, because benefits equals money. And you should be looking at the 401k, the matching dollars. They might even have a gym in your building that they're going to offer that you're not going to have to pay out of pocket. So those are expenses and additions that you should be looking at, not just the paycheck and the salary, but all the other benefits that are going to equate to a better way of living and for your investments. But the 401k is probably one of the biggest areas that you can kind of get into, also with matching dollars. So think of it as free money that you can try to max out on your 401k as soon as you get your job.
And Lauren, do you have a hard time convincing young professionals that that should be a benefit that they should be looking for the first job, or that they should be taking advantage of for the first job? Is it a key benefit that a lot of young people want, or are there other benefits that seem to be more important to some folks?
Well, right now for young professionals, I think the thing that is most exciting is if they offer something to pay down student loans. Student loans are such a huge burden for so many young professionals that they're looking at that as, does my employer offer that as an employer benefit? But they definitely are open to putting money in the 401k. I think the thing that I've seen quite a bit with young professionals is only doing what the employer matches. So if the employer matches 3%, they put 3%. Well, we know that over the long term, 6% is probably not going to get you to retirement in the way that you want because you're building a lifestyle with all that other money that's coming home. So to try to get yourself above and beyond the match as soon as possible. And then as it pertains to like what to pick, I would say, just to keep it easy, if you don't know a lot about investing, try the target date fund, based on when you will retire to get started. So that's one thing that a lot of people don't know. They're like, I don't want to do it because I don't know what to invest in. And I also don't want to do more than what the employer matches because that's what people hear a lot about. But we've got to do more than the match to get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you made up a great point about employers paying back student loans. More and more employers are doing that. About 10% of employers or so now are looking at it, at least large companies. And a lot of people don't know that it exists. And so the ability to get $5,250 up to that amount paid every year on your student loan debt is a key benefit for a lot of folks. So you want to make sure that you look, as you're looking at companies and where you want to work, that you're seeing what all of the benefits that they offer, from the 401k to paying back student loan debt, the student loan repayment plans, to your healthcare coverage and many other things. So thank you, Lauren, for bringing up that important point. I want to get everyone's response to this one and get all of your input. Ashley Contreras is graduating from San Diego State this year with a degree in marketing. And Ashley has a really important question for you.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and representing the West Coast. My question for you all is, as a college student about to graduate with a decent amount of my savings, what do you all believe is the key to achieving financial success at such a young age?
Wow, that's a big one, but an important one. Anthony, let's start with you.
I think the most important thing to guarantee your financial success is to basically think about your career, think about something you really enjoy doing, and then focus on it. But again, also be realistic. When I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to be as good as Hank Aaron. I wanted to be as good as Mickey Mantle. But eventually, over time, I realized that that was not going to work. So at the age of 14, I decided I wanted to be an economist and never look back. And that worked out. So again, be realistic, but also be very focused, because after all, you're going to have that career for a long, long time. The worst thing that a lot of people do in college is to not really focus on what kind of careers they want, given the fact that you're going to spend so many years. If you're not enjoying it, you're not going to excel. So focus on something that you think you will enjoy on and you think you have a good chance of succeeding in.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Lauren, what would you say?
I would say you need to avoid the get rich quick schemes. There's so many distractions out there. Really lock down your patience. That is the true key for me to financial success, is being patient. Everyone's talked about, getting in, putting in little by little, starting now and having patience are huge things that are going to impact whether or not you're going to be successful. And then the last thing would be understanding the value of time. Understanding the value of time means you start now, even in your 20s, when everyone is saying YOLO and all these other kind of catchphrases, and, moving on and realizing that, I can't think about retirement because I'm just getting started in my career, but I have to think about retirement because I know the value of time. So patience, time, and block out those distractions.
And you mentioned something earlier, Lauren, that I think is also very important, which is mindset. And I'm just curious how important mindset is to financial success for you, and your, background as an Olympian. I'm sure mindset was very important there too. Is there a correlation?
Oh, very much so. And I think one of the things we come up quite a bit against is, what we experienced in our childhood or, upbringing that affects our mindset. So if you heard all the time, money doesn't grow on trees, or I don't have it, all these things that are scarcity, you might start with a scarcity mindset, even if you're not in a scarcity situation. So to really do some reflection on what are the things I heard, how might they be limiting me? What do I want to accomplish now? And where do I want to go in the future? Will help you get your mind in a space to be able to say, okay, blank slate, what do I need to do? Let's grind it out and let me be motivated toward my goals and my values.
Awesome. Martin, what do you think is the key to financial success?
I think the long-term vision is going to be critical. That's what you need to focus on, Ashley, because as other panelists had mentioned, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's really to invest, and you're not going to have a lot of success when you're younger, but that 401k, those investment portfolios are going to grow over time. And what you think about when you're 22 is going to be different when you're 32 and 42. But as you build up that portfolio, you're going to have different options, regardless of what career path you take and what profession, and hopefully it's something you're very passionate about. But you're going to maybe decide, I don't want to work till I'm 65. I might retire when I'm 45, but because of my portfolio that I've invested in, it gives me that liberty and that financial freedom to do that. And that's something that's really key and that you should be looking at. So don't worry about what's happening with the Joneses and Tesla's up over 600% or some of the other stocks. You invest in companies and in mutual funds that you're comfortable with and that you're going to kind of invest and put away and not even look at for 5 years or 10 years. But you continue to invest, and there is where you're going to see the biggest benefit when you're 32 and 42 and 52.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great point. Damon, I want to switch it a little bit for you and ask you a question about the key to financial success, what you thought it was when you were starting out as an entrepreneur, as a young adult, and what you know it is now.
Yeah, so I didn't know what I didn't know. It's about being disciplined and understanding what does that look like? What is financial success to you? Is it being able to work 6 months out of the year and living on an island the other 6 months and being with your children and your family? Is it that the register is ringing when your head is on the pillow? Because you have various streams of income? Is it being part of companies that you really find fascinating? I do diversify my portfolio, and I got to tell you, what taught me financial success is looking at this crazy guy named Jim Cramer many, many years ago and watching him and keeping that on every day. And over 2 years, I started to really understand what was going on. And as I invest today, I only invest in companies that I feel if they go away, they will disrupt people's lives. If Facebook and Instagram go away and we have to find all those pictures again, oh boy, we're in trouble. Or if Amazon goes away, I can get out of my house in the morning because my wife will no longer have a wall of boxes in front of my door. So her life will be disrupted. So, it's all about having this discipline, of course, putting away what you can systematically over the years, understanding your 20-year goal, your 30-year goal, and also being in things that you absolutely love. I think all the panelists kind of echoed that in so many different ways.
Yeah. One thing I would say, Damon, the book that I wrote that Anthony mentioned is for couples, but it really is for everyone. And it's about 8 steps that you can take to make the most of your money and live richly ever after. And when I wrote this book right before the financial crisis in 2008, when it was published, I know people were thinking, what is she talking about? Get rich? I just lost everything. But I'm not talking about riches in that way. It is having a financially fulfilling life, a life that allows you to have the freedom to do what you want to do. And to me, one of the best ways to be able to do that is to also protect your money. So one of the things that young people probably don't really think about, because you're starting your first job, you're trying to do all the budgeting and follow the B word that we're talking about here, but you also need to think about how you can protect your money. And one way to do that is by having insurance, having disability insurance, having life insurance. You're like, I'm a young person, I don't need life insurance, but you definitely probably may need, not definitely, but you may need disability insurance. And this protects income, protects that salary that you have, protects that income that you have if you're not able to work for a short period of time because something happens. So, when I wrote that book and talked about getting rich, I think some people didn't understand. I wasn't talking about being a millionaire. Maybe you're going to be a multimillionaire, but the key is to just be financially sound and financially independent. And that kind of freedom allows you to do so many other things in your life. Now we're going to get to Radka Horkova, and she is graduating from Baruch College this year. Congratulations on that. She has her 2nd degree in journalism. And Radka, go ahead with your question.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. I am considering taking out a mortgage, which would be the first loan in my life. And I would like to know what my first steps should be, from going to my bank, finding a mortgage broker, or talking to a realtor.
Martin, your firm offers real estate advisory services as well. Is this something that you can help Radka with?
Sure, Rutger, I would say that from our real estate group, we do a lot of development, but when you're looking for your first purchase and a first mortgage, it's a big investment. So I would say don't rush into it. Kind of check with your bank, check with other banks and the different rates as well to see who's going to give you the better term for your loan. And it might be a 15-year, it might be a 30-year kind of mortgage, but also check with different realtors and check even with your family to see who has bought a home recently and how was their experience so that you can kind of take their good and bad experiences and learn from them so that you're going to make this big investment at a young age, which is a great investment. And you get to diversify your portfolio in real estate as well as in kind of the markets and investing. So I think it's critical to check around, shop around, and don't rush into it. And definitely do comparisons with each of the banks as well as the realtors.
You know, Martin, I got advice for purchasing my first home from someone who said everyone stretches to get their first home. That was not really sound advice, in my opinion, because, you know, sometimes I felt I have a home that I can't even furnish. I'm stretching too far here. And one of the things that I learned later that I think is important to do is to pretend that you're paying that mortgage payment before you buy the home, before you actually have to pay the mortgage. If it's how much more than the rent that you're paying now, or how much can you really afford in terms of that mortgage payment, and that may narrow the field in terms of the type of home that you're going to be able to get, but it allows you to buy a home that you can truly afford, because I don't necessarily think people should be stretching for their first home. There's a lot of stretching that happens in your financial life, and that's a really, really big ticket item. So you don't want to stretch too far on that one. What do you think, Martin?
Yeah, I would definitely agree, Sharon. I think it's a major investment, and you want to think about not just the mortgage that you're going to have to pay, but the insurance and the taxes as well. So you want to ensure that you are in a position of what you can afford and make sure that the realtor is reviewing that and the bank is going to review it with you as well to look at all of your finances to make sure that you're not going to get into trouble and buy a home and not be able to make the payments a few months later, because that would be a bad situation for you. And you are going to be owning an asset that will continue to grow. And for every community in the country, those folks that do own a home have an asset, and they're going to use that to kind of even leverage down the road. But you are purchasing something that is a major investment. So definitely don't go, out of your above your skis and purchase something that you can't afford, because it'll come back to bite you.
Raka, that helpful to you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Sharon,
Shrian Jifiawan is a senior studying business analytics at Florida International University. And Shrian is here with us now. What's your question?
Good afternoon from the beautiful Sunshine State of Florida. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be a part of this. I'm a 21-year-old student, and I currently have a full-time job as a service manager at a car dealership. But I'm actually thinking about quitting my job, first of all, to graduate school faster, and also to become an options trader. What are your thoughts?
Wow. Anthony, what's your advice for Shrian?
Well, Sharon, I think that that's a great idea that you have that kind of ambition, because I kind of shared that. When I went to graduate school, I took out a graduate teaching assistant making about $5,000 a year. About half of that was for rent. And I also had a child, and I was married at the time. So that was a real tight situation. And I basically gave up the opportunity to take a full-time job because I focused on long-term gains with short-term pain. If you're focused on that, and by the way, you're from Florida International University, one of my best friends, he's a professor at the finance department, and he basically can tell you the same story because we both had the same financial situation. We both did it, and guess what? The most important thing is for you to decide whether or not you want to take that short-term pain for that long-term gain. You have to be focused. If you're willing to do that and you completely convince yourself of doing it, I would say go for it. But please do not be disillusioned in any way into thinking that it's going to be easy. But the sooner you do it, the faster that long-term benefit will come out, but short-term pain.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Crystal Santos is graduating from Montclair State University in New Jersey, not too far away from CNBC. Crystal, go ahead with your question for the panelists.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's so much great information. My question is, as someone who feels that they've been working since forever and has been good at saving, now I'm looking to invest it. What are some recommendations you can give me of where to start? What's the best way? Is there a best way?
Is there a best way, Lauren? You're a member of the CNBC Financial Advisor Council, by the way. So can you give us some advice there?
Yeah, so great job on getting the savings part down packed and now being able to move on to, investing above and beyond what you save for your emergency fund. So I would say the biggest thing to get started is, how much time do you have to invest in understanding investing? So if you don't have a lot of time, then you're going to want a simple strategy. And there are tons of different things out there that don't have to limit you because this is not something that you want to develop expertise in or spend a lot of time on. There are robo advisors out there that do have very low cost ETFs that you can invest in that are going to follow the index. And, it's like, what's your name? What are you trying to accomplish? When do you need this money by? And you can kind of set it and forget it, put on some auto pay. But if you want to get a little bit more into it, then you find a custodian that is going to be appropriate for you. You look into the various things that are available. So learn what an ETF is, learn what a mutual fund is, understand why it's going to be a hard thing for you to, pick one or two stocks. So everybody's like, oh, these are the three great stocks right now. You're not very well diversified in that regard. So how much time do you have to invest in understanding investing and then choosing a platform that's going to be appropriate based on your goals? So that's, like I said, something robo-advisor, choosing mutual funds or ETFs that are already set up, or, building your own portfolio, which is going to take the most time and require the most investment of knowledge.
Lauren, a lot of folks have questions about robo-advisors and how to find the best one. Are there 2 or 3 questions you should be asking yourself as you're trying to find a robo-advisor?
Yeah, I would look at what the robo-advisor is investing in. So they do share that information, and then also expense ratios. So understanding how costly it's going to be to use this kind of automated option. In general, they're relatively cheap in comparison to hiring a full-time financial person. But you also do want to always be cognizant of what they're choosing on your behalf, and then also how much is it costing me for them to make these choices on my behalf.
Great advice. Thank you very much. Now we have Jessica Coacci from Stony Brook University. Jessica, what's your question today?
Hello from Long Island, New York. Thank you so much for being here. My question was, I'm graduating soon and going to get my first adult job. What steps financially could I take when saving in doing so?
Martin, what do you say?
Sure, Jessica. I think, saving is great, and you want to put aside money from every check to put away towards saving, but also investing as well, because you're young. You probably don't want to be investing in bonds, but you're probably going to be looking more towards stocks or mutual funds. And based on where your knowledge is of the markets, you can allocate some of your money towards, if it's S&P index funds or even ETFs. And you might venture out into different stocks that you're researching that you might feel comfortable with, and some that you might be, using on a daily basis. It might be, electric vehicle type companies or tech companies like Twilio or others that, are going to be around for the long term. But you start investing early and saving. So in the savings account, you're not going to get much of a return right now, but you're young and you have a long projected time frame of when you're probably going to kind of use the money for retirement. So you can kind of go and invest in stocks that are going to give you over the long term a better return than something in the fixed income markets.
Excellent, Martin. Does that help, Jessica?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. I want everybody to realize how many people are with us today. And our panelists may not even realize that we have college students from over 100 colleges and universities across the country that are joining us right now. And we have a lot more questions. We're going to just get to a few more. I hope you'll bear with me. I know we're near the top of the hour, but I want to keep it going and get to as many of your questions as I can. Next, we have James Davies from St. Thomas Aquinas College, where he's studying finance and sports management. James, go ahead with your question.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you all, and thank you for being here today. My question is, what is the one quality that you have found to have led you to where you are today?
Wow. Some reflection there. Anthony, what would you say?
Well, certainly I want to also first start out by saying I invite all of the students to connect with me in LinkedIn and read about some of the things and thoughts that I have. But to answer your question directly, James, one of the things that worked for me is that I always had a very high level, high pain threshold to suppress or manage both financial and social stress. And that means that living with less in order to focus on what was going to happen later on. And the social means maybe foregoing some of the exciting things like attending every single party. It's not to say that you don't go to every party while you're in college, but again, trying to manage that a little bit better. Now, everyone is different, James. I knew a lot of people in college that could work hard and play hard. For me, I could not do that. I could either focus on working hard or playing hard, and I chose to work a little harder and playing a little bit less hard. So again, it's not that you have to be a hermit, but again, managing those two things, trying to control your financial stress, which happens when you're a student, and I experienced that, and I know a lot of the people on this call today are experiencing that, and social stress. If you manage those two things or optimize them, I think you're going to be successful in the long run.
That's great advice. What do you think, James? Make sense?
Definitely. Thank you. Yes.
And I hope that I don't, something bad doesn't happen to me for mispronouncing the name of your school. But James, thank you so much for joining us. And I really appreciate you asking the question.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Phoebe Wabi is currently pursuing her master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology at NYU, New York University. Phoebe, what is your question for us today?
Thank you, Sharon. Hello from Manhattan. I'm about to finish my master's this May, and I would love to hear advice you have for students who are recently graduating and just starting off on their own.
Lauren, what do you say about that?
I would say if you're recently graduated, one of the things to be thinking about is, we kind of covered the retirements and student loan debt payments, but what do you want, 20 years from now? What do you want even 5 years from now? So maybe you want to take on a spouse. Is your spouse going to have student loan debt? If you're in a serious relationship right now, those are the kind of things that can throw off oh, I'm here, I'm on my own, I'm doing my adulting, and then, oh, hard left turn, children and childcare. So to really start setting some goals around what it is that you want your life to look like, and starting to save and organize your finances according to those goals, even if the spouse is not in the picture yet, even if the, additional children or whatever those things are that you want to join your life. It's okay, I'm a grown up, I've got to do at least these things for myself. But in light of the fact that these other things may come along, maybe I even want to, reel my finances a little bit back, a little bit more, keep my savings rate high so that, my savings rate goes down a little bit when these other kind of life events happen to me.
Excellent, excellent. We have a few more questions to go through, and I want to bring up right now a student from The Ohio State University again, Aguchuku Obiagu. I hope I said that right, but you'll say it for us so that everyone knows who you are. Go ahead with your question.
Hello from Ohio. My name is Aguchuku Obiagu, and I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you, Sharon, for having me, and thank you, panelists, for joining us. And so my question is, as a new mom, which investment account is the best to open for a minor? Between the UGMA, the UTMA account, the Coverdell ESA account, or the 529 college savings plan?
Lauren, I'm going to keep you on for this one too. What do you say?
I would say you have to be mindful of what you're trying to accomplish. So the UTMA and the UGMA are going to be considered when your child is ready to go to school. So if you're looking for them to get financial aid, those will be considered your child's assets. And so that is a very important process, or a very, very important thing to think about. If they're not going to need any financial aid, then maybe these are really good accounts because they offer a lot more flexibility. The other thing to know is that, when they become your child's assets, they're theirs once they reach the age of majority. So do you want to give them that much flexibility to be able to start doing whatever they want with that money? The ESA is going to limit you to $2,000 a year. So it's a very small amount that you're going to be able to save, and it's going to be limited to education. And in that case, I would use the 529 plan instead. So 529 is going to allow you to put away a lot more dollars. That money is going to grow tax-free, and you're going to be able to use it for various educational expenses. So sometimes people worry, what if I don't go to, what if my child doesn't go to college? Well, you can change it to a different child. You can change it to yourself for your own educational expenses. You can start to use that for their education during elementary or high school. If you realize, they're a piano prodigy and they're definitely going to have everything covered. There's lots of different ways to be able to use a 529 plan if they don't choose formal education as their, what they want to do later on in life.
It's a great point. I think a lot of folks don't realize that a 529 is not only for college tuition, but for a whole lot more that can pay for different types of educational opportunities. So thank you, Lauren. Thanks for your question too. And next we have Virginia Commonwealth University senior Caitlin Harrison. Caitlin, what's your question for us today?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor to even be able to talk with you all. And my question today was, as I look toward moving out of college after I graduate, how many months worth of expenses should I save up in order to make sure I'm secure?
Martin, how would you answer Caitlin?
Sure. Well, Caitlin, I think a key part of it is something that Lauren had shared earlier. You want to be thinking about even getting your first job, but also should something happen where you were to lose your job, having put away almost 3 times or 3 months worth of expenses. So if your monthly expenses are $3,000 and you want to have $9,000 saved up, 3 months kind of put away, that you have set aside. And I think for all of the students, they're probably contemplating, do I want to move back with my family? They probably don't, but that might be a way to start saving some money so that they can kind of get into their job, start making some money, and start investing it as well so that they're better prepared to go out there and rent an apartment or even buy a townhouse or a condo or even a home. So I think if you're planning, for the downside scenario, having 3 months worth of expenses kind of set aside as a backup, that would be good, but also looking at some of the other investments for you.
Thank you.
Excellent. We're going to get to another student now. Ahmed Abouzeid is a senior at Montclair State University studying television production. Ahmed, what is your question today?
Well, hello, Sharon. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's a great honor. Before I ask my question, I would like to say I'm a family supporter and new to the country. So I was looking for what is the best investment I can make. So that's my question.
Martin, I want to turn that one to you as well. What would you say?
Sure. And Sharon, I think, Sharon, just to let you know, I think it's great that you have 108 different colleges because all these students that are on, this is the first step. It's just learning what to do. And the fact that they're here and they're showing that initiative and have all these questions, it's exciting because they're going to be part of this whole financial network that we're all involved with. But for Ahmed, I would say that the best investment you can make, Ahmed, and you're providing for your family, getting your degree and your education is going to kind of put you in a different status and open up so many different opportunities for you. And once you do that, kind of the job opportunities will be out there for you. And you can look at what the salary is, but also what the benefits are. And thinking about the healthcare costs, since you do have a family, the benefits is going to play a big part of it because it's not just the salary amount, but what are you going to be paying out of pocket every 2 weeks going towards some of your healthcare costs? So I think that's something you want to think about as an expense, but also if you can take some of that money and set aside and start putting into a 527 plan for your family as well, if you have 1 or 2 kids. But that is going to be helpful to your kids, but also if you can have some money for that you're starting to set aside for your portfolio as well. So taking all of those into consideration and doing what you can, when you go out there and get your first job after graduation.
Excellent. Excellent. I hope that helps. We have another student now, May Jun Leg, who is studying advertising and public relations at City College of New York. That's another NBCU Academy partner school. We're so glad you're with us, May Jun. What's your question?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. I would say many students like myself are just starting building their credit score. So my question today is, how can I effectively raise my credit score, and how can I use the money I have on hand to invest with no or low risk?
Excellent. I want to get Lauren and Anthony, I think, on this one. Lauren, what would you say to that?
Yeah, so to raise your credit score, I think Anthony mentioned it earlier about getting a credit card, which is a relatively easy thing to do if you can't because you don't have any credit. A secured credit card is a good place to start. And then just putting one expense on that. So if you're not sure how credit works exactly, you're not sure if you can trust yourself or about your budgeting skills, it's a great thing to just do your gas or just do your cell phone. Pick one thing and just buy that and then pay it in full every single month to start to build some credit. And once you get there, you're starting to move along. The other thing I would say is not to take on too many different things. So sometimes people have 5 or 6 credit cards. They take on the car debt, the mortgage, all the different things. So you want to keep things very simple initially and realize that credit is a means to acquire debt. And ideally, we don't want to take on tons and tons of debt because that impacts our net worth and we got to pay it back at some point. So you want to be really mindful when you're taking on debt. And then as it pertains to investing, I would say, make sure that you're ready to invest. If we're talking about debt and investing in the same sentence, it's like it might need to prioritize paying down debt or raising your credit score, and understand too that if you make a mistake, those mistakes usually stick with you for about 7 years, 7 years before something drops off. If you make a small mistake like being 30 days late, it doesn't impact your credit score too bad. So once you're 90 days behind, that's when you're going to be in big trouble and they're going to start throwing big red flashing lights on your credit score. So just to be very mindful of staying on top of your finances, I think is another key factor.
Lauren, there's another term that often comes up when it comes to credit score that I would love for you to explain, and that's credit utilization ratio. Sounds very complicated, but why is that important to your credit score?
Yeah, Damon mentioned that a little bit earlier. It's important because what you're using, so let's say that they give you a credit card and it's a $10,000 amount that you're able to use. So that's the available amount that you could spend purchasing whatever you want. Well, you are not going to want to spend more than $3,000 on that card before it starts to negatively impact your credit. So if you spent more than $3,000, that's more than 30% of what is available. So you're utilizing more than 30% of that debt. And they're saying, hey, this person is using quite a bit of what they have. So they're probably not in a good financial situation. They're taking on quite a bit more risk, and that's going to make your credit score start to go down. So ideally, you'd like to keep that utilization at 0 by paying that bill in full every month. But you don't want to get to $9,999 of your $10,000 that's available, or they're going to say, ooh, this is a really sticky situation. You keep putting yourself in, buying things on debt, and maybe you can't pay it off, and so that's sitting on your bill every month, and then you're over, and now you're in a bad situation. So they're seeing that rising balance, and they're saying you're reaching the danger zone, and you want to kind of get yourself out of that, and they're already adjusting your credit accordingly.
Excellent, excellent. Anthony, I have a question for you, or another student rather has a question specifically for you. Hassan Azrahi is up next. Hassan is studying finance at Suffolk University. Hassan, what is your question?
Oh, hello from Boston, and thank you for all for coming here. My question is, where do you see the finance industry in the long term?
Hassan,
Anthony?
I think that, yes, Hassan, I think that in the future, the thing that you should focus on is blockchain. Every major global bank is investing in the blockchain technology. And what you look at around the world is that almost every major central bank around the world is also investing and exploring the opportunities with blockchain. Because again, that seems to be the wave of the future. Think about even before when we talked about real estate, a student earlier talked about buying a house. When you're trying to buy a house and you live in another country and you try to buy a house in the United States, the transaction cost could be as much as 20%. But when you use the blockchain technology, you are able to reduce that transaction cost to the low single digits by developing smart contracts, by reducing the amount of foreign exchange transaction costs, even legal costs. There's a whole bunch of different costs that take place by using the blockchain technology, going to lower the cost. So whether it's a major bank or whether it's a fintech corporation, they're all moving closer to blockchain. All you have to do is look at what you just saw just today. with regard to Coinbase. It wasn't that long ago, but Coinbase was being valued at close to $1 billion and on its way now to as much as $100 billion. Blockchain and cryptocurrencies are the wave of the future. Not to say there's going to be a lot of volatility, but if you're really focused on something that's going to happen, even though there are going to be bumps along the way, focus on blockchain. That is the future in finance.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that is the future, and that's what we report on CNBC so much. If you want to learn more about that and what you need to know, definitely go to cnbc.com to learn more, but also make sure that you're following all of our panelists to hear what they have to say, whether it's about blockchain or about your 401k, about other ways to get started investing. We've had a fantastic time here with you all today, and I hope you've gotten something out of it. I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much to all of the students and the recent graduates who had so many fantastic questions, to our experts, to Martin Cabrera, who we should also mention is a member of the Latino Donor Collaborative. Thank you very much. And Dr. Anthony Chan, Damon John, Lauren Williams. You've had so many excellent answers to the students' questions, and you've been so generous with your time in being here with us today, and we really appreciate your insights. So thank you very much. And we really especially want to thank NBCU Academy for bringing together many of the partner schools, for having us and encouraging us to have colleges and universities, even beyond the partner schools, to join us today. And it has been a terrific experience to be with NBCU Academy and doing this event. If you want to learn more about NBCU Academy, please go to nbcuacademy.com. And if you'd like to watch some clips from today's event and learn more about many of the topics that we've been talking about, go to cnbc.com/investinYou. For CNBC, I'm Sharon Epperson, and remember to always invest in you. Thank you very much for being here.